America's history with racism is long-standing. To this day, we still fight the effects of slavery, Jim Crow era, segregation, and the Ku Klux Klan. One of these fights started with the famous case Brown versus Board of Education. This case lasted about a year and a half, and on May 17, 1954, the court decided that separate is not equal. This led to the desegregation of public places. Most importantly, the desegregation of schools. The Little Rock School Board pledged to be the first to voluntarily desegregate their schools. However, this was not met kindly by the citizens of Little Rock, who were desperate to keep the schools segregated, to keep the lifestyle that they knew, the lifestyle that oppressed the African American population. The 9 who were chosen to go to Central High School were Minnie Jane Brown, 15, Terrence Roberts, 15, Elizabeth Eckford, 15, Ernest Green, 16, Thelma Mothershed, 17, Melba Patillo, 14, Gloria Ray, 14, Jefferson Thomas, 15, and Carlotta Walls, 14. These students are famously referred to as the Little Rock Nine. It was not until 3 years after Brown versus Board that the Little Rock Nine tried to enter Central High School. On September 2nd, 1957, the day before the Little Rock Nine were meant to go to school, Governor Faubus of Arkansas sent the National Guard blocking the Nine's entry under guise of protection. In actuality, he sent the state's National Guard to prevent the students from entering the school, and he was successful.
High School. The night before school was to open, Governor Forbes came on television and said he was calling out the National Guard to bar our entrance, and he was going to, and white students would be able to go to class.
Orville Faubus's reason for doing this was purely political. His political survival depended on white votes. If he had allowed the Nine into Little Rock Central High School, he surely would have lost the next election. The plan for September 3rd, 1957, was to have the kids picked up and for reverends, both black and white, to escort the children into school.
A small group of clergy, both black and white ministers, who were part of the cadre that helped to escort us to the school. And the mob and the noise and all of that, it didn't seem to me I was going to get into school that first day.
The clergyman called each of the 9 to let them know. However, Elizabeth Eckford was the only one without a house phone. The night before, she was unable to be contacted, and instead she got on a public bus in the morning and went to Little Rock Central High School alone. Elizabeth Eckford showed up to school unaware of the fact that the state's National Guard was there to prevent her from receiving an equal education. She was met with an infuriated mob of racists and soldiers who refused to let her enter the school. They spit at her, screamed at her, and hurled racial slurs. You have to remember that Elizabeth was only 15. She was alone, and a violent mob is directing all its hatred toward this young girl. Being turned away from the school, Elizabeth made her way back to the bus stop crying. A white reporter, Benjamin Fine, told Elizabeth, "Don't let them see you cry," out of love and protection. A white woman, Grace Lorch, stood behind her, protecting her from the mob, and she scolded them, saying, "She's just a little girl." When the bus came, Grace accompanied Elizabeth. When the rest of the Little Rock Nine showed up, they too attempted to enter the school and found that they had to turn away and go home. Then 2 weeks later, a judge ordered the National Guard to go away. On September 23rd, 1957, the Little Rock police attempted to escort the Little Rock Nine into Central High School, and they managed to attend class for about 3 hours. However, school officials sent the 9 home fearing for their lives. And then the president found out. On September 25th, 1957, President Dwight Eisenhower ordered the 101st Airborne Division to Little Rock, Arkansas, to escort the 9 personally to class to ensure their safety. From that day on, they began to attend regular classes.
Okay, so you're waiting at Daisy Bates' house for the army to come, I guess, to pick you up?
No, before that, on 23rd, we had been gathered at the Bates house, and we went by cars in groups to Central, and we got in a door at the far end, well away from the crowd.
Right.
Crowd was down at the 14th Street end. We went in 16th Street end. But when we were gathered to go to school after we had been taken out, and we were there with the military. We went in a military convoy. I remember we were in a army. I remember at one point, I don't know, it was the first day or another day. One point we were in a military van that was, that olive green, and there was gun-mounted jeeps fore and aft. Um, and, and I remember the soldiers walking us up those steps, and there were students who were kind of like in a barricade, and soldiers went right through them. I felt like that was a triumphant moment for me, to have our protectors just, just have them part,
That's
like,
right.
like part in the Red Sea.
Much better than the 23rd.
Yeah, and the students were chanting 2, 4, 6, 8, we don't want to integrate. And we developed this line to ourselves, 8, 9, 10, the guards will take us in.
In January, Minijin found herself surrounded by a group of white students in the busy cafeteria. Overwhelmed by their taunts, she spilled a bowl of chili while trying to get away. The school reacted by suspending her for 6 days. Minijin was only allowed to come back when she agreed to not retaliate to any further harassment. The bullying persisted. There was one incident where a white boy poured soup on her head while classmates cheered, and surprisingly, or maybe this was to be expected, the school only suspended him for 2 days. On February 26, 1958, a group of girls tossed a purse at Minijin. It hit her harder than she expected, and when she checked inside, there were 6 combination locks. Frustrated, she dropped the purse and shouted, "Leave me alone, white trash." The girls reported her to the school's administration. Minijin's punishment was indefinite suspension. They couldn't formally expel her for fear of the courts and the president himself. Cards were passed around the school reading, "One down, 8 to go." She moved to Manhattan, where she graduated from a private progressive school called New Lincoln School.
So, I mean, I think I'm worse than people even think I am, in that I do have this streak of resistance.
To prevent further desegregation, Governor Fabbis closed all Little Rock, Arkansas public schools for a year. This left 3,665 Black and white students without access to public education. However, pressure from a large group of white upper-class women, called the Women's Emergency Committee to Open Our Schools, caused the governor to open the schools the very next year. After the schools reopened, Carlotta Walls and Jefferson Thomas went back to Central High. However, this was not the end of the abuse, threats, and social exclusion. On February 9, 1960, Carlotta's Walls' home was bombed.
The governor decided that, and in fact, he was not through. What he decided to do was to close all of the high schools in Little Rock in the 58-59 year. It returned in September of 1959, and without guards. I was a senior. Jefferson Thomas was the other one of the Little Rock Nine who was a senior. In February of 1960, my home was bombed. And unfortunately, my father was considered one of the suspects of bombing his own home with his family in it because he was not there.
Out of the 9, only 3 graduated from Central High. Ernest Green became the first African American to graduate from Little Rock High School on May 27, 1958. Carlotta Walls and Jefferson Thomas graduated in 1960. Thelma Mothershed got her diploma from Central High by taking classes through mail to finish her studies. Minnie Jean Brown moved to New York, and she lived with doctors Kenneth B. and Mamie Clark. She attended Southern Illinois University and majored in journalism. Terrence Roberts went to Antioch University, Los Angeles in 1993. He is now a chief executive officer of Terrence J. Roberts and Associates. Elizabeth Eckford attended Knox College in Galesburg, Illinois. She became the first African American to work in a bank in a non-janitorial position in the city of St. Louis. Ernest Green went to Michigan State University and worked in the private sector for consulting firms. Thelma Mothershed attended Southern Illinois University. She worked at the Juvenile Detention Center of St. Clair County Jail in St. Clair County, Illinois, and as an instructor of survival skills for women at the American Red Cross Shelter for the Homeless. Melba Patillo went to the University of San Francisco State University, and Columbia University. Melba is a successful author and speaker. Gloria Ray attended Illinois Institute of Technology and worked for NASA. Jefferson Thomas went to the College of William and Mary and served as a volunteer mentor in the Village to Child program co-sponsored by Ohio Dominican University. Unfortunately, he died in 2010 from pancreatic cancer. Carlotta Walls went to Michigan State University and the University of Northern Colorado. She became a real estate broker. In most public schools today, you can see that there is no racial segregation. This is possible because of the Little Rock Nine. This happened in 1957, which was only 66 years ago. In fact, 8 out of the 9 of the Little Rock Nine are alive today and still telling the story of how they changed the public school system.